And
All right. Hello, everyone. This is the random podcast of Awesomeness.
Take two.
Yes, I am Shadow Wolf.
And I am Grenette14. And today I picked out the game.
Yes.
We went out and played the Nintendo DS game From the Abyss, which is pretty much an action RPG in lieu of, Diablo, Shining Force from the GBA. Actually, I don't remember if it's called Shining Force or not, but...
I don't quite recall that one either, but yeah, it's a RPG with lots of slashing and hacking.
Yes.
In this game, you are the hero.
Random hero. Character name.
And you are saving the kingdom, as you do in most adventure games, I suppose, from the evil that is dwelling in this dimension.
The dimensional labyrinth on the far side of town where the grickle grass grows.
Yes, exactly. You pretty much have quests that you go through the dimension, and there's like 3 worlds each, in each world.
Actually, there's 3 stages in each of the abyssal dungeons.
Yes, 3 stages in the abyssal dungeons, along with the boss fight.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really a lot of importance to the story, but it is there. And
there is definitely a story here if you bother looking into it.
Yeah.
The characters that are out in the town, although they don't actually do that much, if you bother talking to them multiple times before you go into the abyss each time, you'll actually be able to build up. You'll actually be able to build up what the story really is about. Like Ruscio, Scarlet, Lord Vey, all these different characters that are rather important to this, rather important to the plot, but that you only really get to see once or twice.
Now, as you are going through the dungeons, you run into many things. Many of them being very annoying.
I don't find a lot of them to be.
Well, not a lot of them,
usually.
but there is at least one annoying thing they add each time. I want to say.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in the first dungeon...
Grassland.
Yeah. And then in the second they add bats. Like these flying bat things.
Oh, you're not going to mention the man-eaters? Fine, I'll mention the man-eaters. The man-eaters in this game have way too much freaking health when you start off. It's either way too much health or defense, one or the other.
They do, but I didn't really have much problem with them as compared to, like, the bats that I really hate the most. Because you can't really hit them. You can't really hit them.
Oh, but that is because you do not know the power of Heavy Tomahawk. We'll get into that.
Yeah, that's something for after. But at the beginning, you have your basic stuff. You have your heroes.
You have your slimes, your ogres, your wolfmen.
Yeah, but for, like, your equipment, you have, like, a sword and a basic robe, which will get you through the first dungeon.
With almost no real problems, actually. Although I do recommend you spend your first 2,000 Lufia. I take it that this is supposed to take place in the realm of Lufia, but I doubt it. But you can spend your first 2,000 Lufia to get a better weapon, and for the love of God, please do so.
Yes, I suggest it as well. The basic sword is okay for the most part, but it's much better to have something like a spear or an axe.
Oh, yes. These are just preferences, really, but each of the different weapon types handles differently enough to where they all have their bonuses. For example, bow. Actually, bow has almost no bonuses. Do not use the bow.
Yes, I don't really care for the bow.
The bow is damn near useless because the projectile takes like a half second to charge up and a full second to travel, so it never hits anything.
I figured I might be able to use it against the bats, but that did not help.
Actually, I could use the bow against the bats, even while they're flying, because their sprite is on a particular plane. You line up your bow shot to that plane, and then you can hit them.
I still had difficulty with it either way, though.
The bow is not a good weapon choice in this game. Although it does make me want to test out a few of the bow skills.
Yes, and then we have skills, which are one of the big parts in this game.
But we have to explain, before we get into too many of the skills, the primary skill why you will be acquiring skills. Unique to From the Abyss is the ability Soul Capture. Now
Yes.
I know you guys are thinking, oh, that's not unique. Alucard had that in Symphony of the Night. No, Alucard was Soul Steel, and it was strictly a heal bonus, and it
Now,
cost too much MP, and I could never figure out how to fucking do it.
now soul capture is actually a really good technique, I would
Yes.
say.
But you have to be a certain level in order to get the most use out of it. Because
Right.
regardless how... Okay, here's how Soul Capture works. You cast it, and it sends a small orb about, two of your sprites worth up to the in the direction that you're standing. It costs 10% of your maximum MP. Remember this. This is the only skill in the game that I've seen, rather, that costs a percentage of your maximum MP, and as such, it's the only skill in the game that actually has a steady MP cost throughout the entire game.
And what also is amazing about this technique is it can heal your health while you're using it.
Did you
If
beat
you
the second dungeon with Soul Capture, dude?
No, I did not.
Oh, but you told me that you beat Waste Golem.
I did, but not with soul capture.
No, you're not. I mean, did you Soul Capture one of the zombies in there?
Oh yeah, I did.
Okay, so you really shouldn't have been using Soul Capture as a means of healing after that.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's nice in the beginning to have it for that.
Yes, for the first two dungeons, having Soul Capture as an option for healing is actually pretty good, especially if your levels are where they're supposed to be. But for the most part, you're going to be wanting to Soul Capture ogres because they got 68 HP and are relatively low compared to where you are.
Right. I mean, there are certainly better ways to gain health points, like, say, rest.
Yes,
It's amazing.
rest, which you get from zombies at the end of Dungeon 2 by using Soul Capture. But in order to acquire skills, we kind of went off at a tangent.
Yeah, in order to acquire the skills, with the soul capture, you suck up one of the enemies, and each enemy has a unique type of ability that you will get.
And this is something that's going to throw people off, but you do have a limit on how many skills you can acquire. These just don't go into a skill tree that you gradually unlock. No, you have an inventory of skills.
Right.
And
Which is
I had
actually
totally
very cool.
forgotten this towards the latter half of the game, so I went through the last 2 to 3 dungeons not actually being able to acquire any more skills because my skill list was maxed out. By that time, I had all the skills I needed, though, so...
You can also purchase skills in the shop if you wish to.
Yes, but these are ridiculously expensive, especially when you consider that most of these skills you can get for free just by
Right.
using a skillful soul capture.
And as Gerdat was saying, each creature you can actually get from, but you have to be a certain level in order to actually
To
get
have
them
a
from.
good chance at it.
Right.
You see, it's not really a luck-based game, a luck-based minigame when it comes to soul capture. It's a button mash, and the faster you mash that button, the stronger you are with your soul capture.
So yeah, with that you have all the unique abilities that you can get. There are a handful that actually go with the weapons you have.
Actually, a majority of the skills you'll be using are completely weapon dependent. I find that hilarious. If
Yeah,
you
they
want
are.
to go for a mage run of this game, by all means try it. But I'm telling you right now, it's not nearly as effective or as cool as you think it is.
I mean, most of the ones I've found are the best are like the ones that you use for weapons. There are some good ones that don't depend on it, like say rest, for example, is amazing.
Yes, rest is absolutely freaking amazing. Oh look, I get to heal like 20% of my HP for under 100 mana.
Another thing is this game is elemental, so each skill has an elemental ability, somewhat.
Yes. However, well, for the most part, you won't find yourself trying to abuse these elements all that often.
No, not really. I mean, there are enemies that they have their own elements as well, so you
There are
might end
entire
up...
segments of the game that are elemental.
Right.
And for
So-
those, you're supposed to get the opposing elemental weapons, and it's like, I could, but I don't want to, and you never have to match up elements, which is
Yeah, you
actually a
never
good
have.
thing in this case matching up matching up elements, as although it would have been a very interesting and probably worthwhile concept, it probably would have added just a little bit too much to the game for my like.
I don't know, maybe not. Either way, uh, I think it works well in this game.
Yes, the element square, if you will.
While I'm thinking about that, so you have your basic stats like attack, defense.
Yes,
Uh,
strength, defense, mental, intellect, agility, and luck. The last two you will never need to put points into.
yes, you don't really need them at all. Uh,
And it's sad because I thought for a moment that agility would actually increase my overall attack speed, or maybe even increase my movement speed. I
yeah,
don't see
I
any
actually
point in
tried
it.
using it, and I didn't know why it didn't seem like it was working, and I looked it up, and it did tell me what it was for, but
So what does agility actually do?
it is supposed to increase your attack speed.
Yeah, except I was using axes. I gave up on using any weapons other than axes after a while because I found myself disliking the sword so much,
Right.
and I couldn't see myself really trying to use the spear with it. Admittedly, the spear's got really good range, but after I got the axe and managed to pretty much after I used the axe to kill Waste Golem, I never went back, and I'm happy because I got to spam my favorite skill in the game.
And yeah, like Kurdat said, for the most part, if you find a weapon you really like, you can pretty much just stick with it the whole game.
Yes, goes for weapon types, mind you. You do have to consistently upgrade your weapons in order to stay on par with the enemies. Something that I'm glad is here, but it feels more tacked on. For example, every time you clear an abyss for the first time and have the ability to go into the next one, if you go to Whelm's shop, he will have an entirely new list of items, and and the items that he gets scale up with how difficult the game is supposed to be.
Which I do like, because
So
it
it
adds that
balances out the
difficulty.
difficulty
Yeah.
with a fun factor. You can theoretically go through the entire game just using your starter sword and armor. Don't.
Yeah, I suggest not trying to do that. I think that's pretty much the basic gist of this game.
As an action RPG, it definitely does have that whole okay. The main game is actually pretty easy for the most part. If you scale yourself up appropriately, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. But it does have that underlying, however, challenge yourself and see how much more fun it can be.
Yeah.
Now, I am a pansy, so I don't actually go into doing the challenge stuff all that often. Matter of fact, one of my greatest shames in Diablo 2 is that I've never actually been able to finish it without using a hero editor. I am very sad about that.
But this game, for the most part, you can pretty much beat very quickly.
Yes, I remember. Even though I had a bunch of, I got stuck on Waste Golem for an entire week. But when I finally beat it, I said, okay, I set aside an entire day just to playing from the Abyss, and I finished it in 5 hours.
I mean, I picked up this game on Friday, and I'm pretty much done today.
Really? What Abyss are you at?
I'm like at like the second to last one.
Oh, you're at 7.
Yeah.
All right, 7 is actually my favorite Abyss in the game. I love the music in 7. Speaking of, the soundtrack in this game,
It's actually very
surprisingly,
good.
is incredibly good. Although I can't really remember any of the tunes off the top of my head, most of it is in fact background. But it's really good background. It
It's really
sets
good
the mood
background.
very nicely.
I mean, like, if I had to compare it to other games that had really good music, I'd probably compare it to, like, Final Fantasy almost.
I don't want to put it up on that high a pedestal, mind you. I think that comparing it to a lot of the Final Fantasy tracks is a bit of a push.
It might be a little bit of a push, but the music is actually a lot better than most games.
Yes, the music actually does feel like it had a lot of work put into it, and it really shows. Like I said, I love the track that plays for Abyss 7. I like each of the other tracks that play around. I think the only track that I might not actually like is the track for Labyrinth and the track for Abyss 4. but those particular abysses tend to drag out really badly. So that might just be my distaste of those areas.
Right.
Graphically speaking, this definitely looks like it was supposed to be a sequel to the Legend of Mana games.
Yes, it's very well done with the graphics.
Yes, it has that generic anime style that is very very famous now for being on the DS. Like you look at the graphics for this game and it's like, yeah, I could see this being on the DS. Of course, it's on the DS.
I mean, it's pretty much what I expect out of a DS game for graphics.
Actually, I think
Probably,
it's a bit better than what I
I
expected
was
out of
gonna
the
say probably a
DS.
little better.
Yeah. The sprites are actually the sprites are well done and they're all at least mostly well animated. I think my only real complaint about sprites might be with the succubus attack and maybe Maneater's attack, but those are small things. Everyone else has got pretty well animated stuff.
Yeah, for the most part, it's all very well done.
And each of the weapons that you equip actually has different in-game art. You won't really notice it for the most part, but it is there if you care to notice.
So yeah, the audio graphics are both very good. What else to say?
Why don't we give our generic opinions on the gameplay? We've explained it enough.
I really like this game. I'm
As
really
do I.
glad you picked this game. Uh, if I didn't know what it was right away, I probably wouldn't have picked it up. But I thought that you picked a very good game there, Gernette.
Yay!
Uh, I like the feel of this game, and I like the controls a lot.
Yes, the control in this game is actually very, very smooth. You can move in all 8 directions, which is a godsend for this type of game.
Yes, it is. It
Anyone
really
who
is.
tells you that Legend of Zelda 1, the first Legend of Zelda game, has got good controls, needs to go play this, or Link to the Past, or any of the 3D Zelda games, or Minish Cap, or continuing on with my list.
Right. Uh, I actually, because I am emulating this game, I did actually edit where the buttons were for this one, because it is very slash and hack, but
I didn't find myself needing to edit my controls that much, although I will say this. This game definitely does work on a Nintendo DS thanks to the limited amount of touchscreen control. I
yes,
still
you don't really
think that
need it.
I still think, however, that this game was clearly designed for either console or PC based gaming because it feels so nice, at least to me, playing this on a keyboard. It really does.
Yeah, it really does.
And I don't see myself having that good of a time trying to control this with a controller, but on a keyboard, everything is just right there and available to me.
Yes, and I like that too about it.
I tell you, the more I play these Nintendo DS games on a keyboard, the more I begin to realize that, yeah, these were all made on a keyboard, designed to be for a keyboard.
The other thing I actually did with this game is I put the screens side by side, and that actually was amazing for this game.
That is probably that would probably have helped me a little bit, but I didn't really need to do that, nor did I consider doing it, so. But yes, this game is actually really fun to go out and play, especially after Dungeon 3, I think. Dungeon 3 and 4 drag really bad,
Yeah, I do.
but once you get past Dungeon 4 and the game really starts to open up with the just large amounts of skills that you have access to, and the fact that skills no longer cost you an arm and a leg after that point, this game gets very, very fun and pretty and enjoyable is the terms that I'm looking for.
It does. It is very enjoyable to play.
I want to say it's addictingly enjoyable because I kind of cheated with this. I had already played this game before we picked it out for the podcast, but last time I played this, I could not kill Ruscio for the life of me. And then I managed to do it this time. Yay!
Very good. I want to already suggest this already. This is such a great game. I'm actually playing it as we talk right now.
No fair. I'm not doing that because I have to record.
That's very true. I'm actually on the boss right now, and
Dungeon 7's boss, yeah?
yes,
Wind Genie.
yes.
Are you gonna
Uh,
spam the heavy tomahawks?
I'm actually going with my spear this time.
Okay. Oh, well, since you are on a boss, there are some complaints that I have to address.
Go for it.
My first complaint is that even though this game does want you to use a few of these skills, most of these skills I don't really see a good point in using. Dominator, for example, is amazing for like the first dungeon, and then is totally freaking useless.
Yeah,
Crush Axe is actually really good for like dungeons 1, 2, and even for the most part dungeon 3. But after that, it takes too long to execute in order to actually try and get a good use out of it. But other skills, on the other hand, are just so absurdly broken. Heavy Tomahawk can one-shot most everything in the game up once your attack is high enough. It's freaking scary how powerful Heavy Tomahawk is. I admit that I haven't really experimented a lot with the other skills, but I ran through the rest of the game once I got heavy tomahawk. I was putting points into luck and agility simply because I wanted better drops, and I was hoping that it would actually help out my attack speed on my normal attacks. But I never had to have that. Another major complaint that I have is that a few of these bosses are way too difficult for their locations. For example, Waste Golem being the second boss, he can one-shot you with with the rock chain gun that he has. When you're going through post game, which I have to discuss in a moment, that's not really that big of a deal. But the rock chain gun that he has will more than likely one-shot you on the first time you get hit by it. And I personally thought that he would have been a better dungeon 4 or 5 boss.
yeah. Uh, they do challenge you a bit with the bosses, which I was just thinking we should probably have brought a little up. The bosses of each level, you will find that they did a good job of
For the
giving them.
most part, I find that Scarlet is way too freaking easy, and Ruscio is actually about the right amount of challenge for where he is.
Right.
Because Ruscio can two-shot you with that fucking energy blast. Ooh, scary shit. Oh, and each of the bosses have a pinch attack, where once you get them down to about 50%, they'll change their attack pattern slightly. For example, Ruscio will gain an additional sword slash with it, and he'll also be able to shadow dash across the map. For Ruscio, you're supposed to have either backstep or slip forward in order to dodge this. I really never needed to, although I had a difficult time dodging it all the same. But I don't find myself using any of the actual magic spells, like Bullet Flame, Fire Trap, or Salamander Soul.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really find myself using them either. For the most part, you find like 3 spells that you really like, and you end up sticking with them until you get something that you find a little better.
Actually, for me, it's 2. I have Heavy Tomahawk and whatever the highest rendition of Rest I can get is.
Yes,
And then my third one is Soul Capture, simply because even though I had forgotten I was capped out on my skill inventory, I still wanted to Soul Capture each of the different enemies that I found.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice ability that they gave us to be able to get all the other abilities.
Yes, without spending literally both arms, both legs, and our head for it. Abilities cost way too damn much. And that is actually a pretty big problem, because there are several abilities in this game that are not obtainable elsewise. For example,
Right.
you haven't seen this ability yet in the shop yet, Shadow, but once you complete Dungeon 7, Meteorite is an ability that unlocks in the shop. No enemy in the game drops this skill, but it's supposedly the best Earth Elemental spell in the game.
Actually, now that I beat it, I do see it in there. Yep.
Woot! You beat the Wind Genie.
Yes. So yeah, overall, this game is pretty good.
There is one other complaint that I have to go into before we go
Okay,
into our final
go
slots.
for it.
There was clearly supposed to be a crafting system in this game. There was.
Yeah,
You can tell because of all of the different drops that you can see. Copper ore, monster skin, monster fang.
that is something I kind of want to complain about too. Now that I think about it.
There was clearly supposed to be a crafting skill in this game. And in all seriousness, I'm missing it. I really am. Because elsewise, all these awesome crafting materials that you could be using to make the end game weapons and armor are just so loot. And
Right.
money, after about Dungeon 4, you never have money problems ever again. Especially if you talk to the queen before each dungeon. She gives you enough cash to upgrade both your weapon, and assuming you didn't go hog wild spending on potions and other shit that's going to drop in the dungeon anyway, you'll have enough money to upgrade your armor at least a full tier. So yeah, money becomes a non-issue really about halfway through the game, and it's kind of disappointing actually.
I mean, there are some pretty cool things you can get. Like, you don't really notice them very much, but I kind of wish they made more of a difference in the game are the rings.
Uh you haven't unlocked the gemstone rings yet, have you? Topaz, Peridot, and
I have, but like during the beginning of the game, you don't really notice anything with the rings at all,
well, that's because there's
which
only
kind of
one
upsets
ring
me.
until you beat Dungeon 3. That's the Ring
Right.
of Promise. And the Ring of Promise, although is pretty damn good, is nothing to really write home about. See, Shadow, I have something to tell you that's going to spoil it for everybody, but when you beat the game and unlock post-game, you receive the Rubenhold ring. This gives you plus 15 to all stats and nullifies any pure elemental damage. Read, you absorb pure elemental damage. There is a reason for this, though. Post game is actually significantly more difficult than the main game was, but it's not New Game Plus, and I have a problem with that. I really wish it was New Game Plus, but it's
Yeah.
not.
No, I'm actually kind of glad you told me that now. In a way.
So yes, the rings, for the most part, aren't that important, but you should still be attempting to scale your rings up to what you want to do as you go along.
Because I bought several of them throughout the game, but I didn't notice anything until probably I'll try out what you said and after this podcast and see what happens.
Yes, we will not be revisiting this game for another podcast, hopefully. But yeah, this is a game that Shadow and I tend to go back to on a regular basis. It looks like.
I don't know if there's a sequel to this game. If there is, I'd love to see crafting in this game because you can really tell they wanted to put it in there, but they did not.
They even had all the materials for that. You can even tell that either the inn or Whelm shop is supposed to have an option for crafting. Probably
Right.
the adventurer's inn, because otherwise she's just freaking there for most of the game.
Because I admit, I was getting all excited when I was getting ores and monster eyes and stuff. Then I'm trying to figure out what to do with them, and I ended up looking it up, and it was telling me all it is good for was selling, and I was
Yeah,
like,
because there's only one walkthrough on GameFAQs.
yeah, that was the only one.
And here's the thing: the one walkthrough on GameFAQs is not complete. I found this out because according to the one walkthrough on GameFAQs, the skill arrest again is not obtainable from any monster, except it's obtainable in the post game from I think either Slime or Maneater. That is something that they did, by the way. Post game monsters have sometimes have skills that you could not acquire in the main line, like the first fairy slash devil monster you encounter gives you Fire Trap, the best fire spell in the game, and the first magician monster you encounter gives you a Cross Ripper.
So yeah, definitely sounds like this game is worth playing post game afterward. I think that's pretty much about the game. Should we do
We should
our
probably get into final thoughts. We're already
yeah
over
final
half an
thoughts?
hour
Yeah.
in.
Okay. So I'll go. Visuals, graphically, overall gameplay, I will say they did a fantastic job with this game. Besides a few things that they did or left out, it is a very good game. If I had to give a score out of 10, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10.
Which means Shadow is not nearly as disappointed with some things as I was. Damn. Because, viewers, I love this game. I really do. But the lack of a crafting system when it was clearly supposed to be there, the difficulty that I had in this particular one through with Waste Golem, and the fact that the game doesn't really seem to scale up in difficulty as much as it keeps giving you a bunch of what Eagle Raptor called avatar strength. It really does seem to be a slight downside for me. Because after Dungeon 4, there's almost no real challenge left in the game. So I'm going to have to give this an 8 out of 10. I do love playing this game, and I will come back to this over and over again. But it's not a perfect game by any means.
No, it's not perfect, but overall it's a very good game.
And I wish the townspeople had more to do than just complain at you.
Yes, that is very frustrating.
Oh, look, I killed Ruscio. All but 2 people in town hate me now.
Yes, they tend to like the other guy a lot more, and they're trying to tell you how much better he is.
He has a book written about him. God.
But I think that's about it. So I want to say thank you guys for listening, and I hope to catch you next time for our random podcast of awesomeness.
Where we will be reviewing something else.
This is Shadow Wolf.
And this is Grid at 14.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Be safe, everybody.